Tonight on Let It Rip.
I think this is every parent's worst nightmare.
The suspected Oxford High School shooter, a teenager, facing charges as an adult tonight. Police say he opened fire, killing 4 classmates and wounding 7 others. And investigators say he planned it all.
There is a mountain of digital evidence, videotape, social media, all digital evidence possible, and we have reviewed it, and absolutely we are confident that we can show it was premeditation.
Well, of course, we're here with anchor attorney Charlie Langton. We begin tonight with Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard. As the chief investigator, I know that the last day and a half has been intense for you. I hear you've been up for hours. But the most surprising thing we heard today, Sheriff, was that the parents of the 15-year-old accused killer had met with the boy's parents both the day before and just hours before the shooting. Why were you not told about that?
It was news to us. We didn't learn about the school officials meeting with the boy's parents or the boy until after the shooting. So obviously that's a part of our investigation at this point. What kinds of things were talked about, what brought that to their attention. And, obviously we always believe that we'd rather hear too much than too little. And just to encourage all schools, if they have any concern about anything, they should chat with their local police.
Now, to be clear, initial reports say the teenage shooter was bullied. Is that true?
We have no evidence to support that. In fact, I personally talked to the person that coordinates the anti-bullying program in the school district. She said his name is not on their list. They have no reports of him being bullied. We have had no reports from any other student that tell us that he has been bullied, and none of the evidence that I have seen relative to this situation discusses bullying.
Did he have any? Go ahead, Charlie.
Well, Sheriff, I was told that he may have been suspended a few days or weeks or so prior to the shooting for some disciplinary problems. Is that true?
He had no interaction or discipline as it relates to the school until the day prior to the shooting, where there was some concerning behavior. That was the first time that he kind of showed up on their radar.
What was the substance of the suspension?
There was no suspension. There was no suspension previous.
What was the problem?
On the day prior to the shooting?
Yes.
If there was some behavior on the day prior in one classroom, one teacher noticed, and the day of, a different teacher noticed something else and found the behavior to be inappropriate and brought the child down, and they had school officials chat with him, and they called in the parents and had a discussion about it. But at this point, I'm not at liberty to discuss the specifics of that. Obviously, we're now moving forward with the criminal prosecution.
Did he have any mental problems? Had your deputies been called to the family's home before now?
We have no information relative to any mental health issues or challenges.
How did he get the gun?
That's actively under investigation. We know that it was purchased by the father 4 days prior. How he came into possession of it on that day, we don't know. We know he had it at the school, obviously. That is also an ongoing part of the investigation. Understand that the child and the parents are not talking to us.
You were at the school early this morning, even after you did the 10 p.m. news conference with us last night. Could you describe to us what you saw?
Oh, horrific. I mean, it's every parent's worst nightmare to have the thought of their child in a school be subjected to that kind of fear and terror, which, by the way, I'm completely supportive of the charges leveled by prosecutor Karen McDonald, the terrorism, because so many children that may not have been injured were clearly terrorized, and all the other charges, and charging him as an adult. Support all of that, but as an aside. But what I saw at the school, obviously, I've been in, as you know, police work a long time. I've seen a lot of bodies and a lot of death, and there's just something much more gut-wrenching when it involves children. And so to see a scene where children were put through that, to see the whole scenario was heartbreaking. But it was also kind of a testimony to the school district of lessons learned that they had very much inculcated our training that we had taught them. We had taught the school ALICE training and active shooter training. They had taken to heart and had built things into their protocols that had physical barriers that clearly kept kids in the room safe, that, you know, the doors were locked and couldn't be opened. He had fired through some of those doors, but there was no access within those rooms. And so obviously, I think that saved lives. And certainly, I know that our protocols, which I have talked in very clear detail with our whole team, that if we had a situation like this, that I expected them to go in. If I got there first, I'd go in. If we got there together, we go in together, but whoever gets there is going in. There is no staging. There is no waiting. You go towards the gunfire, seek out the threat, because every second you wait could be another victim. And that's what they did. Within 2 minutes of being on scene, they had him in custody. And as you know from my earlier press conference, we now know that he had 18 unexpended rounds with him.
Did he have an accomplice? Do you know, was he acting with anyone else?
We have nothing to believe anyone else was involved or knew about it.
Including the parents? They did not know anything about this?
No, we had nothing to lead us to believe that anybody knew what was going to happen today on that tragic day.
But of course, nobody is talking right now, neither the suspect nor his parents. But there are cameras everywhere in that school, Sheriff.
Yes.
From what you've seen on the video, did this 15-year-old boy target the 4 students who were killed, or was he simply firing at random?
From everything I've seen, everything that I have examined on the evidentiary level, and I haven't seen it all because there's voluminous amounts and we still got a lot more to go through and to research, but everything in what I've seen so far points to a random, not a particular child that was being targeted at all.
The prosecutor seemed to suggest that you or her are looking at the parents, some responsibility and possible charges against the parents. What evidence would she have or exists that would make the parents responsible for anything here?
Well, obviously, you know, charging decisions will be the prosecutors, and it's our job to bring every bit of fact and evidence to bear so she can make those in an informed, intelligent manner. So how that child came into possession of that weapon is going to be key to her being able to make an informed decision. If there's a way for us to determine whether it was given to him, as an example, taken illegally, that's all part of the investigation. I mean, obviously, we know that him possessing a handgun at that age is illegal. Him taking it into a school is another crime, even before all the other crimes began to be committed. So that's all part of the investigation, and ultimately she'll have to make a decision as it relates to any charges on the parents.
Sheriff, could you also comment on that viral video that shows Oxford students barricaded in a classroom when someone outside shouts, "Open the door so you can see my badge, bro"? Instead, the kids immediately started running out because they thought that was a shooter. Did the kids do the right thing?
Well, certainly if they were fearful and they thought it, I also want to say that we have thoroughly investigated that, and it was not the shooter that was at the door. We believe that was one of our over 100 deputies that was at the door and was trying to solicit the kids to come out. And more than likely, because of the anxiety and the tension of the moment, was trying to talk in a less than police or threatening way. And come on, bro, let's get out. Let's get you going. We got to get you out of here. We're going to get you moving. I understand their apprehension and their fear of that. Certainly very warranted, but I can confirm that was not the suspect. We've reviewed his movements, and at no time did he knock on a door or talk through a door during the shooting.
So, Sheriff, before we go, what in your mind is the best way to stop these mass shootings from happening in our schools?
Without a doubt, in my mind, the best way to prevent something is better communication with everybody, parents, students, teachers. we're not going to be in a position more than likely to see something on a social media thread or in a chat group or in some other kinds of things, or written on a piece of paper in the school or on a homework assignment or on a wall. A student or a teacher is going to see that way before us, and we'll never know about it unless someone tells us. So please, 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 if you take nothing from this, we'd rather check out 1,000 nothings than miss one real potential threat. We check out threats all the time. We had so many threats today, I can barely count them on different schools, because sadly we have copycats after any actual shooting. But in the previous week before this, we checked 3 threats about schools in Oakland County, determined them to not be credible or of concern, but still the child was investigated and removed from the school because of the comments. So that's something we would much prefer to do. We've used that system to great effect. We've actually interrupted a child on the way to a school with firearms in the past because of that communication and that openness. So again, we would encourage parents, students, and teachers. You are our lifeline to get that information to preempt something like this. Once it starts to happen, we'll do everything we can to minimize it, which is what we did. We know we saved lives that day by having our folks go in and take him into custody when he still had ammunition, but that doesn't bring anybody back. So the only way we're going to get out ahead of it is to communicate better, signs and symptoms. If you look at the threads, and I study every active shooter scenario that's happened anywhere in the world as they happen, and ultimately learn lessons from it, and we push it into our training. And almost all of those threads, you'll find someone knew or saw something or heard something in advance, and it wasn't shared and the dots were not connected.
Absolutely. Sheriff Mike Bouchard, we salute you under Sheriff Mike McCabe and all of your deputies for responding so quickly and saving lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So quickly. Great job. Thank you. Wow.
Absolutely. All right, coming up, we're going to hear from a former FBI agent, a psychiatrist, and a father whose sons were in the school when the shooting started. As Let It Rip continues. Back with us right now is the former agent in charge of the FBI in Detroit, now head of the Detroit Crime Commission, Andy Arena. Dr. Daryl Shiner, a psychiatrist who has treated both the victims and the perpetrators of mass violence. Also zooming in, Stephen Cumby, a father of 3 children, 2 of them at the high school yesterday. As always, anchor attorney Charlie Langton. But I want to begin with our friend and co-worker here at Fox 2, Jeff Holloway. Yesterday, he was one of dozens of Oxford parents concerned about the tragedy. And Jeff, we know that 4 students were killed, but we're hearing tonight that there were others who came so close to death.
That's right, Hill. I don't want to speak on the behalf of other families and their stories, but I will say that a day after we're hearing so much, and this is people in my subdivision that live close to me, and what their kids went through and how they were able to escape, and just how close they were to becoming one of the victims. It's tough. It's tough.
You know, people move to Oxford because it's a close-knit community. And Stephen, like many parents, you were working away from home. You first heard about the shooting, not from the news, but from one of your sons. What were you feeling? What were you thinking?
Well, that's right. You know, I was in Highland Park, and I got a text from my son saying there's a shooting at the school. He was okay. But he hadn't been able to get in touch with his brother, my oldest son. And I went into panic mode. You know, I immediately left work. I grabbed my stuff out of my work truck and hollered to one of the other guys that I had to go, and took off. And I drove home at probably a rather perilous speed, but it was just breaking on the radio halfway back up to Oxford that you know what was going on, and I guess I was just in a panic. By that time, I had heard from my oldest son, so I had that relief going, but it was still an active situation at that time, and it was just terrifying. There's no other way to put it, you know. And I'm sure every other parent felt the same way. Thank God, at least I was able to bring my kids home that night.
Yeah.
I absolutely grieved for the parents that weren't able to bring their kids home. Some of them,
Absolutely.
so.
So, Andy, what kind of resources does the FBI provide in cases like this?
Well, Huel, they're going to work very closely with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. They're going to obviously be the lead agency on this. But the FBI is going to bring a number of things. They're going to bring manpower, number one. There's a lot of interviews that have to be done, a lot of footwork that needs to be done. There's 1,800 students in that school, friends, family. You've got to touch bases with everybody. And the other thing is going to be the forensics. We saw last night that a search warrant was executed at the subject's house. So I'm sure they got a treasure trove of information to kind of figure out. We're hearing that they're starting to figure out what the motive, what drove this young man to do this unbelievable act. So it's going to be computers. What was he looking at? Who was he in contact with? And then his social media footprint, right? Where was he? What was he posting? I guarantee you, we're going to start finding things that really are going to be chilling that this young man was posting and looking at. So, the FBI is going to bring that expertise and manpower just to support the sheriff's department.
Well, you've worked on terrorism cases for decades. Do you agree that what we saw was an example of domestic terrorism?
It could be. I mean, I teach this class in law school, and what the definition of terrorism. I know we're so quickly to put something in a box. I think as we see what this person's motive was it some type of political thing? Was he bullied? Was he mentally ill? It'll play out over the next few days.
Well, Dr. Shiner, this is the 28th school shooting this year. How do you stop the carnage when our own children are sometimes to blame?
Well, with 28 shootings, we have a lot to learn and a lot of work to do. First, I'd like to say that the FBI has a task force in Oakland County with an Oakland County sheriff, a couple of young FBI agents with experience in investigations and mental health and youth intervention. And when they get wind of a potential episode, someone's making a threat, someone's in distress, law enforcement reaches out to the task force. They'll do interviews, investigate, involve mental health, and get a psychiatric evaluation to determine a direction. So we're getting better at this. We're still not good enough. And we don't know if this was politically, religiously motivated or just a lone wolf individual who is disgruntled. Some of the things that are coming out, I'm the destroyer of the world, and someone who's that angry and that vengeful and feels that isolated is that dangerous. And I remember talking to Andy at another one of these episodes and hearing nobody just snaps. This goes on for days or weeks. There's a prodrome to it, and there are hints. Someone has to know what's going on, and we have to send out a message that if you see something, say something. If you know something, say something. And you have to do more than just stay home from school that day.
Well, Charlie, you had a chance to talk to some of the kids who were there when the gunfire erupted.
They were afraid. They first thought it was lockers slamming. You have to remember that this happened just after a lunch period, between the lunch period and the changing of the class. So this guy, from what we know, apparently hid in the bathroom, waited to the change, got out, took his gun, and started firing. That's premeditation, which he's a 15-year-old. So something's going on. My sense is that the defense attorney will probably ask for a mental capacity evaluation. They will want him to see if he understands the charges against him and whether he can assist in his defense. I would think that'd be there. But this was for the people in Oxford, it was a terrifying experience. They heard multiple shots. They practiced this drill, which probably saved lives here. They practiced these shooting drills in the school. And I think probably because of that, it was something that, again, saved lives, and it got the students aware that you got to be aware of this kind of stuff. I think going forward here, though, I think the schools that don't practice this are going to be practicing this. I think we're going to have to change the way we do business here in school, because this could happen anywhere. It could happen in Oxford. It could happen anywhere. It's a sad thing. And I'll tell you, the people of Oxford, great people, they're nervous tonight. They're strong, but they are nervous. When an ambulance goes by, they worry.
But we heard the arraignment today, though, that detectives had uncovered the cell phone in which this 15-year-old boy spoke openly, made a video of his intention to kill his classmates. That there was a journal also discovered where he wrote of his intention to shoot up the school. And yet, Steve and Jeff, did you hear any rumblings about any threats, any dangers before yesterday's incident?
Well, I can't speak for Jeff, but I know the school had sent out a couple emails in the weeks prior, one on the 4th and one on the 11th, outlining some incidents and concerns. As far as I know, they're saying they weren't related to the incident that happened yesterday. I'm not a big believer in coincidence. If they weren't related to it directly, maybe some ideas were spawned from it. I don't know. It's speculation, Huel, but it just seems to me that there were a lot of red flags and signals missed in this, and on a lot of different levels.
There was a report. There was a report today that his parents were at the school this morning, or that yesterday morning.
They were there yesterday and the day of the shooting.
Before. Yeah, the day before the shooting and the day of the.
Yes.
Some inkling that something was wrong. It's not clear where it wasn't seen through or what else needed to be done. But this crisis will pass, but the trauma is going to be ongoing, and this community is going to be living with this for a long, long time, and it's going to take time to recover. And the only solution to that part of the problem is to ask your kids questions, open a conversation, let them talk about what they saw, and try to normalize it. Not that what happened was normal, but that the reaction of being frightened is normal and nothing to be ashamed of. Those are terrifying experiences. They're life-threatening. And when kids panic, and whatever they do in their panic is to be expected, and we have to support them and listen to them and not shame them for it, or not let them shame themselves for it.
Jeff, Steve, do you still feel safe living in Oxford?
I'll go first. Yeah, I do. I know many of the people here that work in law enforcement. I know they're going to protect us. I think this was a, incident that was something that happened at the school. But Oakland County Sheriff's Department is very visible. Even when I drop my daughter off, she's in 8th grade. Usually in the mornings, they have a patrol car sitting there. I know they're in the schools. Is it something that's going to, resonate and stay with all of us for a long time? Heck yes. I think a lot of parents are worried, but it's going to take time. That's the biggest thing. It's going to take time.
I think Jeff's right. I think it's going to take time for the people. I found the people there to be very willing to try to get over it. They're doing things for the community. They're putting up ribbons. They're putting up signs. They've got a candlelight vigil coming up on Friday. They have canceled some of the more fun activities, a Christmas parade, for example. But the people of Oxford, they're coming together, and they're very proud of it, and they want to help. And I think that's a good thing. But it is going to take a while.
Tonight, we are all Oxford strong. We certainly pray and send our condolences to the families who lost their children and to those who are still recovering in the hospital. We pray for their swift and full recovery. Panel, thank you for your comments and your insights. We might have time for some final thoughts. Stay with us. A few seconds for final thoughts. Charlie, you go first.
I've been to Oxford many times. I like Oxford, Lake Orion. It's a beautiful area up there, but it wasn't that today and yesterday when I was there. I give credit to the people, but it's going to take a while for them to overcome this. And I don't know how to stop a shooting. I want to say it's one rogue person that just went crazy. I don't know all the facts. I think we'll get that. But it is very sad, and it's going to take a while for the people to heal in Oxford.
As a newsman, I'm still in shock, in anger, and feeling compassion tonight. Hopefully, we will find an answer. Thank you for watching this edition of Let It Rip.